Hello and welcome to Finextra. I'm Josie Waite and I'm here with Rob Kotlarz from Signicat, and we're talking about digital identity. Thank you for joining me, Rob.
It's my pleasure, Josie. Thank you for inviting me.
Why is digital identity so important for meeting customer expectations in today's economy?
Well, I think it's clear, Josie, we're moving into a digital world where the digital process is starting to dominate the experience in financial services, and digital banking is becoming an important part of every major bank's strategy. But actually, when we look at it, the way we onboard customers is actually still from the analog world. We haven't really moved into using digital processes across the whole of the globe yet in financial services. So digital identity facilitates an onboarding process. Typically what we're seeing is abandon rates of about 40% when people are trying to enter too much information, going through a traditional analog process using a typical know your customer type bureau data, for example. It's slow, it's difficult, it's painful for the digital customer to enter lots of detail on a website. And with digital identity, that doesn't need to happen anymore, because we create a standard amongst a community, typically government, banks and telcos, that allow us to provide a reusable digital asset, digital credentials, a digital token. And these schemes are taking off all across the world. In the UK, we have the Verify program going into the private sector. The Spanish scheme's been set up. Deutsche Bank are leading with the German scheme. The Canadians are very active. And actually, we've been involved with these schemes for 10 years, where they were founded in the Nordics. So we create a frictionless onboarding experience using digital identity. We reduce dramatically abandon rates. It means people don't have to go and present their passport in a branch, so we can make the experience quicker and more effective for them. And also, we reduce the risks around identity fraud, of which there is unfortunately an epidemic. And there are a lot of fraudsters obviously targeting banks, trying to do some sort of invasive stealing of credentials or stealing of identity. So in major markets, we're seeing far too much of that type of fraud. So digital identity also allows you to control and reduce the fraud level, reduce your know your customer costs, and we use a reusable digital token to achieve that. We can talk a little bit more about those schemes if you'd like.
How does this facilitate the objective of PSD2 open banking and the move to API banking?
One of the core principles of these initiatives is that you'll have multi-party communication, customer data will be shared in order to provide more effective services and more diversity of services, financial services in particular, to the end consumer, whether it's a payments product or a different type of, say, a loan product under the CMA's Open Banking Initiative in the UK. So when you've got multi-party communication, if you've got an interoperable digital standard that everybody is agreed is that person's identity in the digital world, a scheme that is shared amongst all the key players, then you can actually take the fraud and the risk out of that transaction. People can assert their identity to, say, the payment services provider, and they can assert their identity to the bank they're working with. So we think digital identity is at the heart of making PSD2, open banking, these other initiatives frictionless. And that will drive digital business models, digital disruption that will deliver value to the end consumer. Identity is at the heart of making these schemes truly successful, is our view at Signicat.
Which digital identity strategies and schemes will likely become the standards in the medium term?
Well, I think we're already seeing that the collaborative digital identity schemes set up between government and banking are proving to be extremely successful. I would say also the telcos have an important role to play here. I think the heart of the reason for that is that government knows we are who we say we are. They issue our passport, they gave us a birth certificate, they give us a driving license, social security numbers. Other forms of customer identification can be leveraged by banks. And of course, banks have a long-term relationship with many of their customers. So the collaborative schemes like Bank ID, NEM ID, and the Dutch scheme, and now the schemes that are being set up by the Spanish banks, German banks, Canadian banks, and in the UK with the government's Verify program, all of these really enable confidence that the identity is a good and strong identity. Typically, you can't get these digital tokens, these reusable digital identities, unless you go through a strong KYC process. Think of them, if you like, as a type of digital passport. We now don't need all of these 30 or 40 passwords and different IDs. We can use an interoperable standard, and it's much cheaper to deliver that. So there's a strong economic case, and we think that many of the large banks can make very, very substantial savings as well as improve the customer experience using these established schemes. And we're seeing these take off across the world. Digital identity has the potential to really deliver value, particularly on the onboarding process through transformation, adding value around the whole customer experience. That's an exciting opportunity for the financial services sector, and we think they should seize it.
Thank you, Rob.
It's been my pleasure, Josie. Thank you to you and to Finextra.
And thank you for watching.